Welcome to Scary Basement. As you well know, each week, me and my friend Roxy are drawn inexplicably and supernaturally to this basement, which is full of demon dolls, spooky snakes, toy hammers, and your dad, who is back from the grave.
Uh-oh.
Here we have to study some aspect of horror or else we will forfeit our eternal souls. My name is Michael McCollor.
And my name is Roxy Polk.
Let's start out, Roxy, as we always do, with the scariest things that happened to us this week. What went down in your life, outside of the scary basement, of course, that spooked you to your bones?
It spooked me to my bones. Well, more technical issues. Multiple weeks in a row. My computer just decided to give up on me in the middle of doing nothing weird or, strange. Just in the middle of work. It doesn't work anymore. And it took me 2 weeks.
That's terrifying.
2 weeks to fix it.
Did you modify the computer recently or anything? Did you add any parts that maybe you unearthed from an Indian burial ground?
You know, it might have been that. I didn't ask the seller, where he got it from, but there was, a bunch of other, haunted and possibly enchanted items around him, so I should have made that connection. So that's really on me, I think.
Yeah, you went to the haunted item store.
I mean, they said their hard drive was supposed to be really good, so, I looked on Yelp and decided to listen to the reviews, and, you can't be right all the time, I guess. What about you, Mikey?
Absolutely not. The scariest thing that happened to me this week, my Alexa, don't say anything, don't do it.
No, it's going to hear it.
Now. My Alexa has been popping up when I don't mean it to.
Is she haunted? Could she be haunted?
Well, okay, so because I'm a writer, right? And sometimes I'll be writing a line of dialogue and I'll say it out loud, and I'll just say oh, well, this sure isn't my cat. And Alexa will activate and say, are you sure it's not your cat? And I'll be like, yo, Alexa, don't be scary.
I think maybe DemonBot has infected your Alexa, and you might want to get that checked out.
DemonBot is horrifying. DemonBot...
There's a bunch of technology happening.
I strongly suspect that DemonBot is part of at least what is drawing us supernaturally and inexplicably to this basement every week. And I wish he would just stay in the basement.
He wants to get out there.
My week free of DemonBot.
He doesn't like living down there with your dad who's back from the grave. That's the problem. Not a fun hang, I don't think.
Listen, my dad wasn't a fun hang when he was alive. Now it gets even worse. Speaking of DemonBot, is he rustling over there?
I'm surprised we haven't seen him before. Oh, never mind. There he is. We talked about him.
Yeah, he's creeping up.
Greetings, mortals. Have you watched the film I have assigned for you, or your soul's forfeit?
It follows. Roxy, did you watch it? Do you have to forfeit your eternal soul?
Luckily, I did watch it, so I do not. What about you, Mikey?
Okay, yeah, I did watch it. Last minute, I was like, oh, fuck, my soul! And then I, last second, snuck over and grabbed it.
Good. Then you may keep your souls. For now. Please prove that you have watched the film by summarizing the plot.
It follows. 2014 film. I forgot to grab the director's name. He was very good.
David Robert Mitchell.
David Robert Mitchell. It's definitely one of those movies that's about the guy's name. You know what I'm saying? He 2 or 3 times in the movie, it's a film by David Robert Mitchell.
Well, because he wrote it as well as directed it too. So
we get it, David Robert Mitchell. You're talented.
He's Hideo Kojima of movies, I guess.
He's the Hideo Kojima of horror movies.
Apparently, I've decided.
This movie, we open on a girl in pumps running out of her house.
Can we talk about how much I hate that, by the way?
I was stressed out about it too.
Yeah,
not proper running attire.
You would never choose that. No. Especially because it looks like she's wearing pajamas and she just ran out of the house then in heels somehow.
Right, she's kind of prepared for this.
No, she's not prepared at all. And then the first thing you would why would your high heels be next to you when you're in pajamas is what I don't get. It's a stylistic choice though. It's I don't know. I think he wanted to make a comment on women running around in heels in horror movies maybe. I don't know.
Well, it does feel kind of feel walk of shamey. Right? She runs out of her house. She's in high heels. She's theoretically been dressed up. She's got a lot of skin showing. And the rest of her neighbors are all looking at her. Yeah. I think that's starting to right away get into how do we look at people who have sex? Who dare to have sex?
I guess since she's coming out of her house in a suburban neighborhood, it made me think less walk of shame. She's already at home I guess her parents are there. Like, literally, her dad walks out and is like, "What's wrong with you?"
She forgets something, and so instead of just running back into her house, she circles wide, goes all the way around, pops back in, gets her purse, drives to the beach. There, she leaves her parents a voicemail telling them how much she loves them, and in the morning, she is found on the beach, dead, mutilated, body all bent up, leg in an angle that you don't want to see a leg at.
God, like, how
Very
abrupt
frightening.
that scene is, too, like, between her talking and then showing her body, like, the next morning.
It's like a jump cut.
Yeah, exactly, with, like, no sound effect, no nothing. The cinematography in this movie is maybe the best thing about it. Like, there's a lot of good things about this movie, but the cinematography is incredibly impressive. Big, long shots. Like, that whole scene with her, like, running through the neighborhood is just, like, a single shot, like, going around essentially in a circle.
They call that a oneer in the business.
Oh, okay. The wonder, is that
Call that a
real?
oneer. I think it is. I don't know. I'm not in the business. I don't really know what anything is.
You are kind of, though, Mikey. So, like, when you say that shit, I'm like, wait, okay, that could actually be real, or Mikey could be fucking with me.
Maybe it is. I think it is. I feel like
Okay.
I've heard that term before. We then meet Jane. Is her name Jane? I feel like as I was reading about it on Wikipedia, it might be Jay.
Hang on, am I lying?
I'm going to call her Jane because that's a human person's
Hang
name.
on.
Jay is the name of an animated film critic. Did you ever watch The Critic?
I don't think I've seen a single episode about that. Her name is Jay,
It's,
short for Jamie.
get out of here. I'm going to call her Jane because that's what all my notes say.
I don't make the rules. I didn't create It Follows.
And that's
I'm
what
not
her name should be.
David Robert Mitchell.
Jane is out swimming in her pool. She then goes inside to say hello to her sister Kelly, Kelly's friend Paul, who has a big-time crush on Jane, and Kelly's other friend whose name is Weirdo. Jane then goes on a date with Hugh. They go to see a movie. They play a cute little game in line that conveniently allows Hugh to point out a little girl in a yellow dress that Jane does not see. This freaks Hugh out. They skedaddle, only to, just a few scenes later, go have sex in the car. After the sex, as Jane waxes poetically about what it means to be lonely, what it means to be alive, what it means to be a human being, she gets her ass chloroformed. Horrifying.
That's another transition that's really interesting too, like the complete vibe shift.
Oh, yeah.
This whole movie, okay, also her friend that is pointless in the glasses, who, like you talked about earlier.
Weirdo.
Yes, weirdo. She has that e-reader thing.
Yeah.
People don't have cell phones, but she has this high-tech e-reader thing that's like a clamshell. They're very ambiguous about like the technology, and it has this very nostalgic feel to it. While also,
I hadn't even thought about the use of cell phones in this movie. They kind of don't exist.
cell phones don't exist. All of their cars are old. The fashion can like kind of be modern, but sometimes it looks like it could be from a different period. Then she's got that weird high-tech like e-reader thing. Like they very intentionally make it ambiguous, where it's reminiscent of the 80s, feels like it's in the 80s, but also feels like it's not.
Yeah.
I guess.
That e-reader, I guess, is the only thing I can think of that's like really super out of place.
Yeah, like the clothing, a lot of it looks like more modern, you know? Like you could maybe make that debate, but a lot of it looks like relatively timeless and stuff, so.
Doesn't this movie become a 100% different movie if Weirdo is reading like a paperback in that scene?
I guess.
Because I'm just thinking about like how that kind of sets me up, like that little e-reader thing. She has this little like clamshell e-reader that she's like scrolling through and reading a book.
Yeah, it's like the size of a makeup compact for anybody who hasn't seen
Yeah. It feels like that's a piece of technology, and I'm like, okay, so this is a present day movie.
Yeah.
But I think that's the only example of it being a present day movie.
All of their TVs are like big CRT old TVs. In fact, like in their living room, there's two TVs stacked on top of each other, which like makes no sense. It's like, how is it? Why is this like this?
That's such a 12-year-old boy thing. Like, I feel like I had two TVs, not stacked on top of each other, but next to each other in my room growing up, because I was like, well, then I can have friends over and we can both play one-player games at the same time.
Yeah.
And that was, listen, that was chill.
Which I think this movie, it takes so many tropey things from 80s movies and from slasher movies in general and everything, particularly like Halloween with a lot of the suburban settings and everything and kind of the stalker vibe going on.
Yeah, the slow-moving nature, I feel like.
Yeah.
Whenever we see Michael Myers on screen, he's moving slowly, and this is the first movie to call that out and just be like, yeah, that's part of it.
Yeah. So I feel like
That's
a lot
what we
of it,
like about this monster.
a lot of it is dedicated to kind of like he's trying to capture that specific vibe from those movies from that time period.
I can see that. So Hugh has chloroformed Jane. When she comes to, Hugh gives her the rules of the sex monster that he just gave her. He has passed on the stalker creature. I refer to it as the It Follows ghoul.
Okay, ghoul. It does look quite ghoulish at times.
There is now a slow-moving monster that will be following Jane. You can't let it touch you. It will kill you. It will destroy you. Only Jane can see it, or other people who have gotten this sex disease can also see it, but they're not actively being pursued by it. If the thing gets to Jane, it will then go back up the list and kill the person who Jane slept with. So you're in your best interest to sleep with somebody who is going to go sleep with a lot of people.
Yeah, so then you can, like, pass it on. And he's doing this all to her, like, while she's tied to a wheelchair in her underwear.
Yeah.
It made me think about how it's, like, both smart and dumb at the same time. Because, one, he wants to keep her alive so it doesn't get to him. Her staying alive puts more distance between him and the creature. But also, like, so many times in, like, movies or any sort of horror story, when you try to explain the monster or the weird thing that's happening, people will just run away or, like, not believe you or whatever. So it's kind of like, I feel like he had to do that in a way.
Yeah.
Which I thought was interesting. Like, that's probably the smartest thing a character does in the whole movie, I feel like.
It's not bad. It's also, like, a way to apologize. He's like, I don't want to just leave you with this and then bounce. Like, I want you to be equipped to survive and figure out, like, you need to know about this too.
Yeah, it's incredibly self-serving though. It's just to save himself. So there's more distance between him and the monster. So it's not so much kind, I don't think. It's just giving her a shot at surviving so he can.
What is so funny to me about this movie is how on the nose the metaphor is. It's like, it's so clearly an STD monster that, like, 2 or 3 times in the movie, somebody just asks, like, oh, she had sex with that guy? Did she catch anything? Like, it is not, it's not dancing around it. It functions like that, except for the part, which and I think is kind of important, where it does you a service to pass it on. Like, so much of the notion about, like, STDs is that, like, you are afraid to give them to your partner, and so you want to communicate them. Like, but if you could get rid of it by foisting it upon somebody else and then, like, bounce yourself, that feels like a whole new layer of how to deal with an STD. And would we be this selfish? How much of our conversation about STDs right now is about caring for our partner and also feeling like I do still need to have sex and I need to, I would love to get rid of this. So that was funny to me. The monster also can shapeshift. It looks like a person, but it can look like somebody you know. It can look like a random person. I, for the longest time, thought it was just taking forms of people it had killed before.
Yeah, like, that would make more sense. Or if it's, like, somebody who's dead. Like, I don't understand. I guess this monster has rules, but it also breaks the rules many times. And then some of the rules, like, don't track as well.
Oh, what are the rules you think it breaks? I thought this movie was really great about, like, pinning down its rules, more so than any movie I can remember. Pinning down its rules and sticking to them. I
mean, there's multiple times, since you're going through, like, the summary, I won't just jump to in the middle. Like, at the beginning, it starts out pretty much following its rules. It feels like it kind of loses it later in, I'd say. Just here and there.
Let me know.
Yeah.
Let me know if a moment seems off rule to you.
Okay.
Because I didn't notice any. Hugh and Jane escape from this monster. It's a nude woman in flip-flops. Very scary. Jane tells the cops what happens. They're like, oh yeah, this Hugh fellow, his name's not Hugh. He rented a house with a fake name and he has since skipped town, so nobody knows where this guy is. He's out in the wind. We then follow Jane back to school. She looks out of her English classroom window and sees an old-ass lady walking straight to her.
So this was another scene that was basically lifted from Halloween as well, with her being in the class and, like, being stalked from outside. Like, even, like, the shot choices too. It was very cool to be able to, like, notice that.
The old lady, like, pretty quickly gets in the school. And I thought they did such a great job of confirming that, like, only Lily, I kept calling her Lily.
Jay.
Her name is Jane. I keep thinking she looks like, her name also isn't Jane. I have no idea what this character is named. I kept thinking she looks like, I think the actress's name is, like, Lily Reinhold from Riverdale. She plays, like, Betty in the Riverdale show. And so in my head, I kept calling her Lily.
Oh, really?
when I should have been calling her Jane, and even that wasn't right. So I'm like 3 degrees.
Okay.
It's wrong names all the way down.
Like, I think I had seen this actress first in The Host, which is another good movie that I'm not sure if it technically qualifies as horror. You should see it if we don't end up watching it for an episode someday.
Is that a Korean movie?
No, actually. It's, oh, no, it's not The Host. Sorry, The Guest. Excuse me.
The Guest.
Yeah, The Guest. It's, which that director did a movie that I will definitely suggest later. That is a straight up horror movie called You Are Next, which is very good.
I feel like I've seen that. Jane bounces out of class. She's soon confronted in the halls by this old woman. She says, hello. And then like there's other students in the hall that are like, hello, like, because they can't see this old woman. It's so smart. It's so like effective. I'm just like, yes, I know. I get it. Only she can see him. This is the monster.
So the cinematography and the sound design, I think, are like the 2 strongest things. And whenever it shows up, the way they cue the music, there isn't like a cheap jump scare noise or something.
Yeah.
This kind of weird soundscape that is like very threatening when this thing is like getting closer to the main character just doing anything.
This will kind of, I guess, a spoiler for this episode of our podcast. Our bet was about jump scares, how many times I would get jump scared. And I got jump scared very few times because this movie turns out to not be a jump scare movie.
Yeah, I kind of forgot that when I made my bet. So I have a feeling you're going to win this one.
We'll see. Stay tuned. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned for
riveting answer.
20 minutes or whenever we get to it.
That night, Paul and Weirdo decide that they're going to sleep over to keep Jane safe from whatever she seems to believe is following her. Jane comes downstairs to chill alone with Paul. It's maybe getting a little flirty. I don't know. At this point in the movie, I'm like, you gotta sleep with Paul.
There's a vibe.
I'm so angry she's not sleeping with Paul. Every second she's not sleeping with Paul, I'm furious.
He definitely wants to sleep with her.
Oh boy, does he.
He's got a vibe to him that I don't know how I feel about either. Honestly.
Oh no. Listen, Paul's a creep.
Yeah.
And that's why it's okay to sleep with him and give him Sex Monster and move on.
He wouldn't be able to stand up to Sex Monster, though. He'd come after her immediately. He wouldn't be a very good buffer, in my opinion. That's
very true. Okay, maybe this is the right time to tell you my plan that I'm thinking they should have done immediately.
That's
the moment they confirm.
Ask you, though. I'm going to ask you that.
No, it's not what I would do to avoid it. It's what I would do sexually if I were these specific people.
Okay, all right. Let's
think
hear it.
Jane sleeps with Paul. Paul sleeps with Kelly.
Which one's Kelly?
Kelly sleeps with Greg.
Sister?
Kelly's the sister.
Okay.
Kelly sleeps with Greg, who is the boy across the street that we maybe have met by now, just like in glimpses, but like will come into play a little more later.
Yeah.
Kelly sleeps with Greg. Greg sleeps with Weirdo. And I think that's it. But then they have the whole group is all like, okay, we know. We're all set.
A Weirdo could go to the next town and find someone or something.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that I feel like they should have done.
I'm just so furious that like nobody is, the moment it's confirmed that sex is what passes this thing off, that they're all just like, all right, we'll just leave it with you. It's like, no, have sex with everybody.
Yeah, like that's one of the frustrating things about this is that they don't really like test out the rules or anything to like see what else you can do with that. Like, yeah, can we just like domino it like that? Is it only between like, straight couples? Like if you're
I was wondering that too.
Queer, like, is it gonna happen the exact same way? Like, what exactly triggers it? That's one of the things I'm just kind of like, if it's supposed to be more of an idea, I wish it didn't have like, I wish they were more elusive about the rules, because when they start talking about how there's rules to it, it makes me think that it's like a little more structured when I feel like they don't quite commit to it fully. So
yeah, they never get into like the gray area of it.
Yeah, which like if they were being more like metaphorical about it, then instead of just being like, okay, you have certain rules, only the victims can see it, and it is passed on.
This is a great test. This is a great test.
Like also like is it just like if you give someone a blowjob, does that count? Like
well,
what?
Here's my exact question. Yeah. Would Bill Clinton have transferred it to Monica Lewinsky?
Exactly.
Famously, he said under oath he did not have sex. So does the It Follows monster follow the United States court system?
Exactly. Especially if it's supposed to be kind of like a stigma and like a symbol of death and everything like this.
Because at that point, it might as well be like if you sleep in the same bed as somebody.
Yeah. Yeah, like I don't know.
Or if it's something your friends would judge you for.
Yeah, exactly.
So Jane comes downstairs. She's chilling with Paul. We found out that Paul was her first kiss and that Paul turned around and kissed Kelly. That's why I thought they were setting up for like, let's all just form an intricate sex chain because Paul's already in it. Anyhow, a window breaks. The It Follows ghoul hops in, all nude and gross. Jane loses her mind. She goes
Can
upstairs.
we talk about how dumb that is? Like, when you see it in the house, it's like pissing itself, and it's like this woman who looks like maybe she's a rape victim or something. But, like, it just felt so comical. I was like, why is it pissing itself? This is so dumb.
Yeah.
We're like,
Well, I think that's kind of the idea that, like, this is how we are looking at people who have sex.
I guess, but then plenty of times when it takes the forms of just like a normal person or like a child, you know, at certain points, it feels a little. I don't know what if it's just like trying to unnerve you is what it feels like. It feels like it's a little less focused. But I just thought that was funny, sort of, which was not the reaction I was supposed to have to it.
Do you think it's maybe whatever specifically is scaring you at the moment? Like, if at that moment she's worried about being perceived as a slut for having sex with this guy who bailed, like that she would see a slut? That she would.
I wish it was more like that, but I don't think it is. Because then, like, why when. This will be a slight thing that happens later, but she envisions it being. It's taking the form of her friend, and then it takes the form of a child.
Yeah.
And then it takes the form of the victim from, I think, the opening scene. So I'm like, what? How does any of that connect with anything? Right. Like, it just feels like it's kind of randomizing it. Like, you just hit randomizer on an NPC creator or something, which is another thing that I wish it was a little more focused. I wish it was more kind of like, you know, an internalized thing where it's how they see it, especially since the victim is the only one who can see it. That would make so much more sense and be like a much better opportunity to kind of like show that.
Yeah. So, and it's definitely like making choices, right? Because when there's two people who can see it, they'll say like, do you see that girl? And they're like, yes, I see that girl. It's not like, do you see that girl? And they're like, no, I see my high school band teacher.
Yeah, it's not like they see different things. They see the same thing.
Yeah, so it's taking a physical form.
And like at one point it takes the form of a character who is still alive, who it is going to kill. It's like on its way to kill that person, but that person's still alive.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Cool. Love it.
So that's a tangent.
Upstairs, everybody huddles up in Jane's room until Weirdo knocks at the door. And then, baby, this is when the tall man cometh. My favorite shot in this movie.
Very good.
They open the door for Weirdo and they're like, everything's fine. And then just out of the blackness, the tallest man in history just like lumbers over in this terrifying stride. The It Follows ghoul is the tallest man I've ever seen. It barrels into Jane's room. Jane evades it and lives to have sex another day. Jane then runs to the park where she meets not only her sister's friends, but also Greg, the hot neighbor boy. He can drive. And this changes everything.
Yeah, he got a car.
Now, they can go to Hugh's rented house. There, they poke around a little bit. They find dangling cans. They find walls that can be removed because this guy's been living with an It Follows monster for quite a while.
Yeah. Like,
he knows how to escape.
Did he, like, legit rent that house, or was he just squatting there? I feel like, because it feels like nobody owns it. And, like, you wouldn't want to leave a paper trail also.
That's a great call, yeah. I guess he said he was... I thought that they had mentioned him renting a house.
They did, but it was just kind of like, I wonder if he even really did that. Because it felt like when they go there, it feels like he was squatting in it, possibly.
I also am like, is he renting this house and then like living here? And then when it comes, he just like takes a lap and brings it back?
I wonder if he like spaced it out to figure. See, that's the thing too. Like they don't really figure out the time it takes. Like I wish they had done something more to like figure out, okay, you've got this much time because it moves at this speed.
I need them to plant a tracking chip on this ghoul.
Yeah, that too. Why not?
I need like a GBS and we can see, okay, he's down on La Cienega.
I need monster
We've
GPS.
got about 2 hours.
But so it makes me think that maybe he had done an experiment or something to see how long it would take him like between his home and this place maybe. So maybe like every other day he swaps off maybe.
I love that. That he's just got a regular system that he can do. He's like, okay, Tuesday and Wednesday I'm at my house.
Yeah.
The rest of the days.
I have a timeshare with the squatting house.
What if it's everybody is living at that? There's like a bunch of people living at that house and they all have It Follows.
Could be.
That's probably the case. Greg, the hot neighbor boy, can drive, so they go to Hugh's rented house. They explore it. There, they find a picture of Hugh.
Not Hugh.
In his high school Letterman's jacket.
No, it is Hugh. Sorry, they go to two different houses. I got confused for a second.
And this is where, like, is this the girl we saw in the very first scene with him in the photo?
So I can't tell because they looked so different. So I don't know. I wish they had made it more clear if that was the case. Maybe it was just...
Yeah, I didn't know.
I needed to pay more attention, but I feel like they had totally different hairstyles, which would have been a nice way to like kind of give a visual cue. But like her face was very small in the portrait, so I'm not sure. Because I did things like explaining about what happened to Jay's dad, that like they never say it, but it is clearly shown just through visual cues. So it might have been another instance of that where they were trying to imply.
I could see that. Yeah, I like the idea of him giving it to his girlfriend, not necessarily knowing what was going on.
Yeah, exactly. And that's maybe why he suddenly gets...
Oh, and then that's why he would explain it to her.
Yeah, and why he starts to get...
He was a sweetheart.
Debatable.
So the gang heads to Hugh's actual house. They confront him over sodas.
Very
Hugh's
awkward.
suggestion is to drive and get some time to think. It ultimately leads to nothing. He's just like, yeah, I told you the rules. Like, I don't know what you... I was kind of confused why they were looking for him. I was like, what more? He told you a lot.
Yeah, I guess at this
I think
point,
everything he
like,
knows.
nobody else... That's the thing, too. It takes her friends so long to believe her. Like, they don't. They still don't believe her at this point. Especially Greg, the neighbor kid, who is just like, oh, God, he's so annoying. He doesn't believe her whatsoever. And they go and find this guy who is obviously terrified, giving you a specific thing. Like, he's backing up the story she said. They're both very scared. Even if it's they're having a shared delusion, like, something is wrong. And, like, he feels
We
so
got Greg the
flippant
Hammer
about it.
Valentine over here is just like, man, wow, two crazy people saying the same crazy thing.
Yeah, it's like, well, they're just
Can you
dumb.
believe
Like,
it?
I don't believe it. They're crazy.
At this point, the gang heads on up to Greg's cabin, where they engage in wholesome activities like swimming and learning how to shoot a gun. Jane is soon attacked by the It Follows ghoul, and here it pushes Paul, slices him in the stomach. They're all finally on the same page. Yes, this is a real monster. It just happens to be invisible. It never left footprints or anything.
Greg conveniently not there and decides to still not believe any of them after they say it. And there is physical evidence at this point.
This is when they go and hide in the shed. They bolt the door closed. The tall man bops back again.
It's pretending to be what's-her-face, the pointless friend.
Oh,
glasses
Weirdo.
It's pretending to be Weirdo. And that's a very cool shot where she's in the water and then there's one of her coming back behind, but you don't see the one you don't see her established in the water because the creature doesn't speak either. So that's like another thing.
Here's the moment where I'm like, if I'm the It Follows ghoul, why am I not switching into the friend that they're like right next to? You know what I'm saying? Then you can do like a who's the real weirdo, and then they shoot one weirdo, and it's like, oh God, you accidentally shot your friend weirdo.
Yeah,
I thought for sure they were going to murder their friend.
That
weirdo.
would have been smarter and would have made more sense, but it doesn't have any rules for what it turns into. And at the same time, he was like, "It's smart, but it's slow." And it's like, is it smart though? I don't think so. I think it's just slow.
I guess that's a good point that it doesn't talk though.
Yeah.
I guess you couldn't do. Well, I'm the real Michael McCollor. No, I am the real Michael McCollor. And then your friends have the gun and they're pointing it back and forth. They're like, who's the real one?
Yeah. Like it can just make a
It's my
screech noise. I think
favorite
the
trope.
only time is when it dominoes like 3 or 4 different forms where it starts off as Weirdo. Then they shoot it in the head. Then it breaks the door to the shed they're in. Then it's like a child and it screams.
Yeah.
And then it's a little girl.
Right.
So
I think we also get a glimpse of the tall man when they're in the
that
shed.
one? Okay. Maybe.
They like see him up at the top of the window
Oh, yeah,
and then he
walks
breaks the
by.
door.
Yeah, see, yeah, it like swaps
my
between
favorite.
a bunch of different forms just because it feels like it. Because why not? It's having a good time.
Dude, he's having fun. At this point, Jane runs off. She hops in the car. She's so frantic, she plows right into the cornfield. At that point, she wakes up in the hospital, broken arm, all her family's around. And that's when she's like, it's time to sex this Greg up.
And
Greg's got to get
he
sex.
doesn't take her seriously anyway, so he's like, yeah, sure, whatever.
Right. He doesn't care.
I
It's
guess,
very funny.
yeah.
And then he immediately goes down to like the hospital McDonald's and finds another girl to bang, which is very
he
funny.
like didn't, because at that point I was like, oh, is he taking it seriously? So he's going to try and pass it on to someone else to get them more space. And I don't know if he would tell her or what, but he doesn't. He's just flirting.
No, he's
eating like a
just a
fillet of
slut.
fish or something.
Well,
So
and that's
awkward.
yeah. He's eating this like gross sandwich with like a big slice of American cheese just dripping out, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm going to have sex with you
There's like
soon."
3 girls too just enthralled by him for some reason. He ain't that hot.
And it recontextualized all the scenes we'd seen before with him. Like we'd seen him in glimpses, like hanging out with other women,
Yes,
and I remember thinking like, "Oh, it's like his sister." We also get a weird shot of him like checking out Weirdo.
Yeah.
He's just having sex with everybody.
Yeah.
It turns out.
I think the only...
God bless you, Greg.
He might have had a sibling who was in the house with him. Like, that's the only one who maybe. But yeah, I thought that was his sister. But then I think you're correct. And I don't think she was.
Yeah. He just had a bunch of women who were with him, and they were always always commenting on how fucked up Jane's family was.
Exactly.
Which is very funny. So Greg bangs another girl real quick.
No, he doesn't. It's a specific
McDonald's girl.
He doesn't though, unless it killed her and off screen and we never saw.
Oh, I think that's what's implied.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, we never see him have sex with her, but that's why he's like, yeah, I haven't seen anything because he gave it to somebody else right away, and then it was dealing with her.
I thought it was just that he didn't
making its way back.
He didn't care, kind of. So it's just like he's going about his business. I didn't.
Very.
I saw it more as him.
He comes over and is just like, yeah, I haven't seen anything.
Yeah, maybe okay. Then I guess that would make sense. Then why maybe he. Then again, he's not trying to see it at all. If he saw somebody walking towards him, I don't think it would even register to him that it is the creature.
Well, it's a couple days that
maybe it has been.
Jane goes home and she's watching from a window.
This this movie has a very dreamlike quality to it sometimes where passage of time is a little weird. You kind of can't really gauge how long things take sometimes. So the fact that we are having this debate in the first place that we are unsure, I'm not sure if that's a problem or not.
Yeah, I don't mind it. I like that. I like that. That to me was one of those moments where suddenly Greg's entire character snapped into focus in a way that he really hadn't before. I didn't really understand why he was who are these women he's talking to? Who are all these? And that's why I thought, again, it felt like they were setting us up for a big, smart sex cycle.
Yeah.
Because if Greg's into, if Kelly's into Greg, then Greg can be into weirdo. It felt like we were all I was doing the sex math in my head of how we can get everybody on board and then figure out what to do from there. They didn't do it.
Yeah, it's kind of a shame.
Yeah. If I'm ever in a scary situation, I'm going to just right away suggest, I don't know if this is a sex rule thing or not, but we should all consider having sex with each other in various permutations.
Don't you remember It Follows could be like that?
Did you guys see It Follows? They're like, no, it's Michael Myers. We know what universe we're in. And I'm like, well, let's just try it. Can we just try it, please?
That'll make Michael Myers more likely to kill you, Mikey, if you have sex in his movie. You want to die quicker is what you're saying.
I'm going to write a sex-positive Halloween movie.
It's so
which
funny,
I guess
though,
this movie
because
kind of is.
Halloween is sort of the establishment of those tropes, but that wasn't his intention at all when he made the movie, John Carpenter's intention. It was just supposed to be that they were too distracted by each other to notice the thing coming after them. Whereas Laurie is babysitting children and kind of on the watch, so it makes sense why she would see it coming, especially since he had been stalking
So
her.
Halloween is a sex-positive slasher movie.
I'd say it's not sex negative, but people took that away from it to a degree, which is unfortunate.
Love it. So Jane is up in her room. She's looking out the window. She's watching for the It Follows ghoul. Eventually she sees it's Greg breaking into his own house, right?
Yeah, in white long johns, he's just walking down the street and then tries the door doesn't open, just fucking smashes that window.
Smashes his own window, crawls into his house, and this time in a nice little bit of role reversal, Jane does the following.
That's true. She does.
She follows. The it here refers to Jane. She follows the ghoul inside the window. She hops in, sees it turn into Greg's mother, knock on the door, and sex her son to death. Just grabs him. It felt like we needed that scene earlier to just okay, here's the true stakes. Here's what happens. They said don't let it touch you, but it's this is the scene where we're here's what happens if it touches you.
Yeah.
It becomes the worst person you could ever have sex with and has sex with you.
Also, he doesn't really get mutilated the same way the girl in the first scene did. He just kind of turns pale, which was a little confusing. But the main character, she's booking it out of there. So who knows what happens after that?
Yeah, she could like Hannibal. It's always happened on the show Hannibal. The killer would kill somebody and then arrange them in an artistic way. Maybe that's the It Follows ghoul's bit of creativity, that they folded that first girl's leg into an L.
Yeah, I feel it just maybe it escalates to get a little more aggressive after the initial time it tackles you, I guess.
That makes sense. Jane then drives away. This is when we get the, what I would say famous, you mentioned it earlier when we were just talking about it, and I noticed it too. Jane sleeps on the hood of her car like a true maniac.
It's so dumb. She's broken her arm, so she has her arm in a cast at this point. She's driven as far as she can. Her friend just got murdered, and she sleeps on the hood of her car in a forest.
Yeah.
Why? What are you doing? She just wanted to die at that point?
And you don't even have the safety. I always feel a car is pretty safe.
Yeah, because you would get some warning. Even if it has to break a window to get in, it still has to break a window. And you've got some maneuverability where if it's breaking the window coming in on one side, you can leave the door from the other side.
Also,
anything.
Warmer?
Yes.
Blocks the wind?
Exactly.
I don't know. Feels like there's no positives to it.
Especially because I kind of can't tell like what time of year. I think it's sort of fall. It's
Feels
like
fallish, yeah.
sort of fall. So it's like colder outside too. So it makes even less sense.
This is when Jane goes over to the beach, takes off her pants, and wades out, presumably to a boat.
With 3 dudes.
And gets a boat
in
ride
it.
home.
Like, so did
Yeah.
she sleep with like all 3 of them and then the monster worked his way through all 3 of them or just one of them? Like what? That's another scene where they're like, you can just come to your own conclusions about that.
Yeah, I thought I didn't even think about her. I thought she was going to have sex with them, but I don't know that she did or not. I thought they were just going to give her a boat ride home and then the monster would have to walk through the water, which would slow it down.
I mean, like, that would be smarter, but I feel like that's not the case, especially because, like, her cast is wet by the time she comes back, and it seemed like she just wanted some peace for, like, a second, you know? Like, I just want to be able to sleep tonight. I'm gonna just sleep with these guys to sacrifice them, I guess, so I can get some peace of mind. But then later she's like, oh, I can't do that because then somebody would die if I did that. Because I already saw it happen.
I could see that.
So, well, like, I feel
what I
like
would
I
do.
don't really know what her deal is in a way. Because it seems like she is thinking about it in 2 different ways.
I think what I would do in that point, if I find a boat with 3 guys, I'm like, yo, you identify whoever is the most into her. Mm-hmm. They're all into her, right? Mm-hmm. You identify who's the most into you, and you say, you know what I'm super into is watching you have sex with your friends. So let's you and me have sex. I'll obviously, money up front. We'll have sex first, and then I want to watch you have sex with your friends, and then I want to watch your friend have sex with your other friends.
You can just manipulate that. Yeah, I mean, like, who knows what happened on that boat? We don't know. She could have swam into the water, decided not to do it, and then swam back for all we know.
I hope that the entire
or banged all 4
sequel for this movie takes place on that boat. I hope It Follows 2 is a 2-hour scene set on the boat, and we just see men having sex with each other.
Yeah, there you go.
That's my goal for that movie. Jane returns home. She finds that Paul, this is where she gets together with Paul and they talk up in the room. He is so mad she didn't choose him to be her sex partner.
Yeah, the way...
He's like, when did you pick me?
Yeah, the way he says it, he's like, I would have had sex with you too. Or something. Yeah. It's like, okay, yeah, we know. We know that.
We're aware, Paul.
She's aware of that. Petulant, so weird.
Yeah, he feels very deserving of it. Or he himself feels that he is deserving of it.
No, I felt like he thought that he could evade it or something. It seemed like he thought he could... He wanted to...
I think it had nothing to do with the It Follows ghoul.
Oh, yeah. No. Just want to sleep with her.
He was just like, whatever I got to do.
Yep.
Here he sees a picture of Jane in the pool, and he gets a great pool-based idea that I think is incredible. At this point, Jane, Kelly, Paul, and Weirdo get in the car, drive over to the pool, and they start setting up plugged-in lights and lamps and typewriters all around the perimeter of the pool.
To presumably electrocute the creature while it is in the water.
Jane hops in. She gets her bathing suit on. She's in the middle of the pool. They're just waiting.
This scene goes on for so long.
It does go on for a very long time.
Of her just, like, sitting there. And it didn't, like, I can understand things like that trying to draw out the tension, but I think that's when I kind of, like...
It crossed a threshold.
Yeah, for me. Anyway, I was like, the scene is too long. It doesn't feel like it's drawing out tension. And then, like, the payoff for it doesn't feel worth it, which I'm sorry, I just...
It's also a weird payoff in that, like, when the It Follows ghoul barges in, it looks just like a regular man, and Kelly goes, who is it? And Jane says, I don't want to tell you.
Yeah, so that's the thing where, like, if you didn't see the photo of the dad and you didn't remember what he looked like, and even when they show the monster showing up as their dad, you kind of can't really tell because he's from a distance too, so you don't even know it's him either. Well, so it's kind of her reaction.
I know that they afterwards, like in a couple of moments, like after the scene, they show like a close-up of a family picture and we see the dad there. I don't think they showed him before.
Oh, maybe they didn't. Maybe it was afterwards.
It weirdly comes after, so like the punch is negated.
Gotcha. Yeah.
That's upsetting to me. I mean, very scary. There's just a man coming after them. They fight it off. They eventually shoot it in the brain. It starts throwing its own typewriters in the pool, which is funny.
So, like, the whole point is to electrocute it in the water. She is standing in the middle as bait, which means she's going to have to book it on out to get out of there. The thing just starts off immediately throwing the wired things in there. Like, it throws a TV It should have electrocuted her. There's like a short.
It's slow, but it's not dumb.
Apparently, sometimes. Because it throws it in there. It should electrocute her. It like buzzes for a second because they're like, oh, it'll electrocute her. So it did actually do something in the water, but it didn't hit her. And then from then on out, it keeps throwing things in the water and none of it electrifies.
Yeah. Well, because it's like unplugging them as he throws them, right? Is that the idea?
Oh, I guess some of them are.
That's what I was like.
Some of them
it's kind of unclear.
don't feel like they are. The first thing definitely was still plugged in. So I guess it learned that. But so I still don't understand why that didn't electrocute her.
Very weird.
Whatever. Anyway.
So she eventually, like, they fight it off for a while. Eventually, Paul gets in a couple of headshots. They dump it in the water. Weirdo gets shot, which is funny. She's like shot in the leg.
It's so dumb. It's like she had no purpose. She's just here to get shot, I guess.
I thought for sure she was going to die early on.
Yeah. She's just kind of like there. Like,
there's no reason for her to be in here besides to be, hey, here's what happens.
Scrolling
folks.
on my thing. Hey, let me wax poetically about a thing.
Well,
real
okay,
quick.
so this is great. So they shoot the guy in the head, the ghoul rather, a couple of times. Like a lot of red blood comes in the pool.
Yeah, so then you're like, is it dead or is it incapacitated? Like it seems to block wherever its body is, or they just choose to not show it. So you have no idea.
Right. Which is, I think, part of the fear.
I feel like you should double check.
Do I have my genital warts under control? The answer is we'll never know. Just do your best. Finally, Jane sleeps with Paul. Oh my God.
And it's very awkward.
Oh, it's super awkward and it's not good.
Yeah.
But I'm just like, sleep with Paul.
Which I think is kind of the point, though. It's kind of supposed to be where it's more like maybe they're doing this out of comfort or relief or just get it over with. Who knows?
Okay, so then they go and visit Weirdo in the hospital, which is awesome. She reads them this beautiful poem about inevitability. It's just like, yeah, you guys may think you're out. You're not out. Paul drives over, sees himself a couple prostitutes. Great solution to this problem. Who's having more sex than prostitutes? The answer is celebrities, but no one else.
But then he drives on past, so you have no idea. It like seems like they're implying that he doesn't.
Yeah, I think this movie does a lot of like really good visual building blocks. Like it's not giving you all the information, but like it's letting you make those leaps yourself. I love that. It's so smart.
I do and I don't. Like sometimes I do and sometimes I don't.
Yeah, there are like the boat scene I think is particularly ambiguous in a way that doesn't help
Yeah,
anybody.
because we're supposed to be following Jay's story, so we should see that. Like we're not following Paul's story. He's a background character or like a secondary character, so I can understand maybe not seeing that, but it felt weird to not know what happened to Jay.
Yeah. And then they walk home and something seems to be following them.
Could be a person. Maybe it's not.
Could be the It Follows ghoul. It could be Jehovah's Witness ready to turn them to the Lord. Lot going on. And that's It Follows. It's so great. They're holding hands. She's got her broken hand that they're like holding each other with. I love it. It's so good.
Good, you have watched the film. Now you must prove your understanding and discuss its themes.
Roxy, what would you say is the big idea of this movie?
Well, I think there's a couple of different things they're sort of toying with. Obviously, what you were talking about earlier, kind of like the stigma around sex, things like that. But I think it's more kind of about it being like death itself, how it's like, as an idea and a concept, it's always following you no matter what. You could die tomorrow, you could die 50 years from now, you have no idea.
You can't die yesterday.
I mean, that's true. You can't die yesterday.
That's a fact. That's just a fact.
Based on like the way when she's hanging out with Hugh in the lobby and they're doing that like little game as who would you rather be or something like that. And he talks about how he wants to be this child who is like at the movie theater because he has his whole life ahead of him. And then after they have sex in the car, she's talking about how she had thought about like when she was growing up, how cool it would be to go on dates and like be able to drive a car and everything. And then when she kind of got there, she's like, I don't really know what I want to do with this. I don't really know if this is not really what I envisioned my life turning out to be. And she's only like...
Felt like that was Paul's reaction after having sex with this woman that he'd been gaga goo goo over the entire movie. She's like, do you feel different? He's like, no.
Yeah, exactly. Weird. So it feels like it kind of has this oppressive feel to it, especially because the parents are very absent. So it's, having to find your own way to grow up also, which like, I don't think the parents have any speaking roles at all. You see her mom in the background in a couple of scenes in the hospital scene. And there's like a scene at towards the end where she's rubbing her back reassuringly. at their house.
Yeah.
I think you see her in the background drinking quite a bit. There's a lot of imagery
a lot of wine
with
glasses.
wine glasses. Yeah, and like with the father being gone, we can either assume he's either like dead or left or something. And so the mom is trying to cope. She's grown up. Her life didn't turn out how she thought it would be either.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I kind of saw it more as that, but there is also then kind of like the surface thing about, when you grow up, people will have sex, as you become more mature sexually and emotionally. That's part of it.
How great. Again, I love how on the nose it's like an STD.
Yeah, that too.
They do that a lot. But there is a ton of like social shame about sex. And I don't know, the selfishness of sex. I feel like Jane is maybe the only character in the film who is having sex in like a mature conversational way. Like she's not just engaging in sex and getting what she needs out of it, which is passing the thing on. She's like informing the other person, and they've had long conversations about it. Like I feel like that's another aspect of like, I guess living with an STD or living with the fear of death, of just like showing yourself, being authentic about it, saying like, this is what I'm going through before you engage in it, as opposed to getting what you need out of it and keeping silent about it, which I think makes her the hero, certainly more so than the Gregs and Pauls of the world. God, Paul.
Yep.
Paul is the worst. Truly, I don't think the term incel was around in 2014, but he's got big incel energy.
Yeah, where he feels like he is
That
owed
guy is
it.
on forums.
He definitely feels like he's owed it.
And he's got opinions on women in video games.
Yeah. Yep. Would not be surprised.
Brutal.
But hey, he ends up with the girl in the end, so I guess
He does.
that sucks.
That's too bad. I mean, there is a lot of like, when you grow up, there's just like, okay, what do I do with this now?
Yeah, and you always have this romanticized, like the way that she talks about it. Like I've certainly had this happen to me multiple times, where it's the thing you think of in your head of how something's going to play out as you get older. That's never going to happen, no matter what you think it is. It's never going to happen.
Right. It's never perfect. She doesn't, I feel like Greg is kind of this embodiment of like the perfect guy who just like, oh God, if you could get him, wouldn't it be great? But it's like, no, he's the worst.
Yeah, he doesn't listen to you, and
Paul
he
is
doesn't
not
give a shit
great,
about you.
but he's, I guess, better than Greg. Like, even if there's a ranking, there probably isn't. But it's just like, oh, she ended up in a relationship with a guy who's not perfect.
Yeah.
And who she doesn't really like, but he connected with her in a way. And so she's found something. I guess something's better than nothing.
Yeah, like you can tell she finds some amount of comfort, even though at the same time they even say, like, do you feel any different? And they're both like, no, not at all.
I wish I did.
Like, that's another thing, too. Like, sex is built up to be this huge thing. Like, it seems like it's when Paul loses his virginity also, where it's supposed to be this big thing, like, oh, you have sex one time, that's a big life-shattering, earth-moving experience. And it's like, no, it's just like kind of a natural process of human life for some people, not even for all people,
It also usually sucks.
Yes, it's always
It's
a
so
lot more
bad.
awkward than you think it's going to be.
Yeah.
I feel like,
You have to have sex a minimum of 4 times before you have not horrible sex.
probably. And I
Not
mean,
even good
like,
sex.
that might even just be with the specific person, too, based on, like, your compatibility as well. So, like, basically, there's no right or wrong way, I don't think. There's not, like, any hard and fast rule, It's kind of just something you will find out by feeling your way through it.
I was going to say the hard and fast rule.
Okay, well, then, what in your opinion, is the hard and fast rule?
One of my art school teachers talked about how you can't really... You can like a song the first time you hear it, but you can't ever love a song until you've heard it like 3 times.
Yeah.
And so I think sex is like that. You can't really love sex until you've had it at least 3 times. Then you at least know enough about it to know what's in and out. That's the rule. You got to know what's in and out.
Of course.
Sometimes you don't know what's in.
Sometimes you don't
I'm
know
of course
what's
talking
out.
about trends.
Yes, of course.
What
of
the
course,
kids
that's
are
the
doing
only thing.
sexually.
Yeah. No innuendo
You ever
here.
get Teen Vogue and it's like, wow, this fall.
It's an acquired taste.
Cunnilingus is all
An
the
acquired
rage.
taste. You're not going to like beer the first time you drink it either.
The headline of that article is an acquired taste.
Oh, there you go.
Gross. Roxy, do you have a question for me?
Yes, actually. I would greatly like to know what your ultimate escape plan would be to evade the It Follows creature, if we are going to go by the rules that we know of. Because, like, for instance, we don't know how it moves through water aside from, like, a pool that you can walk in. So, who knows?
Here's what I thought they were going to do when he first saw the pool, or the picture of her in the pool. And they're like, remember when we had our first kiss? And the answer was they had it at the pool. But I thought it was going to be like an old abandoned pool.
Yeah, I thought so too. The way they talked about it as well, they're like, yeah, I had my first beer there, all this stuff. It sounded like it was a, abandoned hangout for teens, is what it sounded like.
Right. Yeah. No, it was a full-on, like, school pool. Why are you drinking in school?
It had electricity. It seemed like the pool had been taken care of. It was like a functioning facility. Weird choice.
But I thought they were going to go and be in just a small pool hole, an empty pool, and they would trick the It Follows ghoul into walking into the pool.
Then trap it?
And then it would just fall in there, and then they'd get out and take out the ladder, and then it would just be walking into the sides of the wall for the rest of its life.
Just like a fucking NPC. It's passing, it's trying to get to you, and it can't.
That I thought was a good answer, and nobody did that. I think the actual answer is to go to France.
Okay. Yeah, it's
and you go to France and you stay there for a month. Here's the other thing. We also don't know if it can change course.
Yeah. See, that's another thing that is not clear. Because, like, at one point, like, you're told it just never stops moving. But then you see it on the roof of her house just standing there at one point. So it's like...
That was funny.
It did get up there somehow, and then it chose to stand there. Yeah. And is it because she was directly below it? So it was like, I don't know, is it trying to get through that way?
It was going to swing down. It was going to, like, grab the banister with its hands and then kick up and over.
And also they're just like, it's a naked man on the roof. Look how jarring that is. It's like, okay, cool. Why is it up there? I don't understand.
Yeah.
But so that's another thing, too. If it does just make a straight beeline, is it something like, can it figure out how to take a plane? It can't speak. It has no money, so it wouldn't be able to, like, buy that. But I guess if nobody else can see it. So I guess it...
And if it can be chopped up and regenerate, does it just walk into the plane's engines?
Yeah, like they never... you don't really know if they kill it or if it's even injured or, like, delayed. So maybe if you shoot it in the head a bunch of times, it will be delayed for, like, a week or something. You have no idea. Can it, if it's going through water, is it going to be stuck on, like, the bottom of the ocean, just, like, walking that way? Or does it swim? Like, you don't know. So, like, if you did go across, like, the ocean... maybe, like, you'd be definitely buying yourself time, but so we don't know if it could use a plane or whatever, I guess.
Yeah, I think you got to have two houses. I think you got to have one house in America and one house in France.
The Hugh rule, like how we theorized he was doing.
I think Hugh did it. I think you got to be over in France for 2 months. How would you escape it, Roxy?
I think basically same as you. Yeah, have like two locations you bounce between, or try and do a better job at trying to actually kill it. Trying to trap it somewhere, like... I don't know if you could encase it in, like, concrete or a cage or something.
I was thinking about that, too, yeah.
Something like that.
Lure it to a construction building and try to time it just right so that they pour cement all over it.
So, like, would it be able to bust out? Would it be stuck and, like, trying to move just forever? Or, you know, who knows? But so I think I would test more about how to kill it. Try and get a more specific rate of how fast it can travel. You know, like... It'll travel this many miles in this many hours, so it can kind of help theorize. But definitely put, like, oceans between your two locations.
Roxy, on a scale of 1 to 9, because 10 is not a number that exists, how likely do you think this is to happen in real life? An It Follows ghoul following around the latest sexual partner.
I'd say the thematic... like, stigma about sex, STDs, growing old and dying. Death never goes away. So I'd say that is 9%, but an actual physical ghoul manifestation, I'd say 1.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. I don't think sex has been charted in a way by dark sorcerers who study grimoires in a way that they could ever make this an actuality. But you're right. I think that would I ever have sex with somebody and then they not believe me when I tell them there might be consequences? Sure. Would there ever be somebody who...
Wait, Mikey, am I learning something about you that I don't like?
Yeah, I have to like reconsider what that means. Like, I'm thinking about like... you know, Greg, she like sits down with him and she's like, hey, if we're going to have sex, you might get in It Follows. He's like, yeah, sure. Okay, yeah, let's just have sex.
Yeah,
then.
that's on him because
Like-
he's just thinking about getting laid.
Exactly.
He's not even thinking about what happens to him after. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, if the villains in this movie are Greg and Paul, the answer is 8. That is they are all very likely, and they do happen to all of us, and we have all been Gregs and Pauls, I think, at various points in our lives.
Have we, though?
I've definitely gone through Greg phases. Oh, and definitely Paul phases. Yeah, I've been. I don't know. Maybe you haven't.
Personally speaking, I have not, but...
That's great. I'm proud of you.
Thank you. I'm proud of me, too.
I am definitely more Greg than Paul now because I'm hot. But I'm also less angry, more laissez-faire. Let's stop comparing me to sexual villains in the movies we watch.
Yeah, how about we don't do that?
It is time to collect your souls. I mean, it is time to collect your bets.
Last week, Roxy, we made a bet.
Yes, we did.
How many times will I jump in this film? I guessed 5 times. I'm a noted jumper.
Okay,
That's
yes.
an important thing to note. I jump in horror movies all the time. I have the nervous system of a timid cat. I am ready to leap into the air at any moment. I guessed 5 jumps. You guessed 11
Yes,
jumps.
I did, because I know...
I did track this.
I did not think about how little there are jump scares in this movie and how it's not
Very
as
few jump scares.
Scary, really. So I overestimated.
It's more of a lingering fear, which I personally find more frightening. I think this movie is very unsettling.
Yes, yeah, it's got a
The
completely
number of
different
times
vibe.
I jumped
Yes, how many times did
in
you
this
jump?
film, 3.
Fuck, I'm so far off. I can't even believe how far off I was. So you
I
win,
jumped at
Mikey.
the,
Yay.
I jumped at the chloroform.
Okay.
That was scary. I jumped at the first appearance of the tall man, which is one of the more haunting movie moments I've ever seen.
Yeah, the movement on that.
Louis C.K. has a TV show that one episode he was doing it like he kept falling asleep and like a weird man kept like leaping into his apartment. He would like open it. And it was the same kind of shot. He would open his front door and see a hallway and then a monster like ran out and leapt inside. And it's maybe the scariest thing I've ever seen. And this had that same vibe. The tall man is not cool with me. And then the screaming baby child. I screamed at
yes. Yeah.
he was like the only true jump scare.
It's the only time
I
the
feel
creature
like.
makes
He
a
is-
noise, too, as far as I can remember. I could be wrong,
Oh,
but I
sure,
think that's
yeah.
the only time where it, like, looks at her and screams and its face is all, like, weird.
Yeah. I love that baby child. Why would it be a baby child? I was thinking maybe that was the only one that, like, physically, that was the only form it could take that could fit in that hole it made.
Yeah, see, like, something like that would make sense, yeah. Tried the tall
But
man
who
and was
knows?
like, wait, can't get through that way.
Roxy, I don't know if you know about this. I actually reached out and talked with the director of this
Oh,
film.
did you?
What was his name again?
David Robert Mitchell is the man you, for real,
David Robert
in life,
Mitchell.
in real life, talk to.
I sat down with him and I said, hey, I need to know the rest of the chain. I need to know how the It Follows Ghoul started and who were the people. Like, we know that Jane slept with Hugh, and then Hugh slept with a woman at the bar. He says that in the movie. But I'm like, who did that woman at the bar sleep with? And who did that person sleep with? And back up to the very beginning of the It Follows chain. And he actually said, well, don't worry, Michael McCollor. I am happy to give you my document that lists
Oh, I see.
all of the sexual partners of everybody, including all the way back up to the top of the chain. Do you want to go through
So
this?
he gave you the It Follows lore Bible, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was the condition for me to get out of his house.
Okay, it makes sense.
I was sitting in his living room, cross-legged, and I said, hey, David Robert Mitchell, you directed It Follows, right? And he said, yes. And I'm calling the police. And I said, hold on. I'll leave peacefully. I just need the single document that I know you have. And he gave it to me. So we have it. Do we want to take a look
Yeah,
at
let's
this?
take a look at it.
Okay, so Hugh slept with a woman at a bar. That woman's name was Anne Barkley.
And Barkley. Okay.
And she was a history buff. She was big into the San Francisco gold rush.
Interesting.
And so she studied that. She like worked at a museum. She studied the San Francisco gold rush to the point where she felt most comfortable dressing like a San Francisco prospector. So she wore overalls and no shoes.
Because they famously didn't wear shoes when they went to the mines.
Right. They were always barefoot and they wore they wore their pants hiked up real high. And they always had long red t-shirts on. So that's what she was wearing when she met Hugh. They did make her wear shoes to go into the bar, but
she got one of those big floppy hats too.
Yeah, she had a big hat with like the center of the hat, the like piece that tops off the hat was like kind of coming unstitched, so it was like kind of folding up. And so they did make her wear shoes. So she just borrowed the bar's like community shoes. Like, you know how sometimes you go to a restaurant and they're like, oh, you need a jacket. But they're like, oh, we've got a jacket for you. And it's always too big. This bar had that with shoes.
Okay.
Because it was in such close proximity to the museum that focuses on the San Francisco Gold Rush that there's enough people walking around barefoot that they just have a couple pairs of shoes. So she was wearing some oversized Adidas when she met him.
You gotta make sure you encourage that return business, so I can understand why they would go out of their way to give her a pair of oversized Adidas shoes.
You don't want to turn down a customer.
In this economy?
Do you want to just read the next line of the person who Anne Barkley slept with to get the It Follows ghoul?
So I'm seeing here that because she worked at the museum, she came into contact with a lot of people who also worked like at the museum and in adjacent categories. So she met a paleontologist, actually, who was just back from a dig. He found a big old T-Rex, his find of the century, super cool. So he wanted to celebrate and just right place, right time. I don't think he knew about the It Follows creatures. My guess, though, he was so distracted by dinosaur bones.
Oh, got it. So he was like, first of all, fresh off a dig.
Yeah.
So he's like kind of dirty.
Yep.
But also that means that whoever he slept with to get the It Follows ghoul, he slept very quickly. So that must have been somebody at the dig site.
Must have been. You're seeing it there. Is she on the list?
Because I'm looking up. So that guy's name was Philip Wilton.
Okay.
The paleontologist. Philip Wilton, I'm seeing at the dig site, met a woman named. Is this right? It's just a single name. Her name is Squan.
Quan.
It's spelled
Squan?
Squan. Squan. Squan.
Squan.
Squan.
Squan.
And I'm seeing here that she's a feral woman.
Oh, wow. He really had a type, huh?
So that's why she was at the dig site. She was just like living in the forest.
Ah, okay. She was interested in like whatever the hell they were doing out there.
Right. She's the kind of creature who lives in a forest and climbs all around up on the branches.
Friends with Tarzan, I get it.
And she just wore a single loincloth and it only covered one breast, which I'm finding out is what so attracted Philip.
Okay.
She had one breast out. And he was like, well, I gotta have sex with that.
I mean, like, you're on a paleontology dig. Probably not a lot of options out in the middle of nowhere in the forest.
Oh, it had been somewhere between 6 and 13 months for old Phil.
But since she's a feral woman, she's so good at evading, she probably was stuck with it for a while, I would assume.
Yeah, I think that's what it says here, that she had the It Follows ghoul for 16 years.
Wow, okay. Yeah, see, she's very good at her job of living in the forest. That's a job, right? That can be a job.
Who do you see as the next name on the list here?
I don't know. Okay, let me see that. All right, it doesn't have a name. Why does this not have a name, Mikey? Could this be the progenitor? Do you think it's the progenitor of the It Follows?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, it doesn't have a name because there's no historical record of this person.
I see. Okay.
One thing David Robert Mitchell told me about this entire list is that he's just going by official court documents.
Oh, okay. So this makes sense.
Whoever this person is, they just didn't have a name. They didn't have a social security number. You know who this is? He did mention this to me in person when I was in his house and eating his food. And he said, there is one person on the list who's a very famous criminal. Oh. And he winked at me.
Oh.
So here I am now putting it together. Of course, there's no name on this list going backwards because the person who gave Squam the It Follows virus was notorious plane/money robber D.B. Cooper.
Oh my God, it makes so much sense.
Right?
Yeah, because that wasn't his real name, so you can't put that on the document.
Exactly. There's no documents of him. So, okay. D.B. Cooper, as we all know, in about the 60s or 70s, was a man who got on an airplane. This is a real story.
He's a real man.
And he passed a note to the stewardess that said, I have a bomb in my briefcase and I need $200,000 and 2 parachutes. Otherwise, I'm going to blow the plane. And she's like, okay. And they did it somehow. They got him money up in the plane. And he parachuted away and they never found him again.
Or
he
his
was
money,
just missing. And the money went missing too. So I guess now we can kind of start piecing this together. He must have landed in the forest.
Yeah.
Met a woman who would go on to live, who maybe was already living in the forest.
We don't know Squam's whole life story. She doesn't have to tell it to us either. So
well, she
can
had
only
16
assume.
years.
Yeah.
This is just a couple of years before the woman. So it's D.B. Cooper must have lived in the woods too. 20 to 30 years.
Yeah,
before
from some
meeting
amount
Squam.
of time at least, right? I mean, he escaped notice. He probably was just like laying low,
Sure.
waiting for his chance
He
to
built
re-enter.
He built a small fortress out of his money. His dollar bills. He just pasted together into a house. So that means we're like in the 60s. Though whoever gave D.B. Cooper the It Follows had to have been the progenitor, right? You're right. I think we're at the point where it's like, we got to be getting to the beginning of this.
Yeah, I would think so.
And it looks like whoever gave D.B. Cooper the It Follows virus at first was, so this was the 60s. So that would have been, I'm looking at this right. Lady Bird Johnson, the wife of former President Lyndon Johnson.
Wow.
Here's the thing. A lot of government experiments going on at the time. They didn't feel good. They didn't feel right about testing it on people. So they needed volunteers, right? The U.S. government is always looking for new ways to weaponize its technology.
And weaponize the first lady in particular.
Well, exactly. She is like real game. She's just like up for anything. She's like, I'll try it. And so they were working on some sort of weapon that they could maybe inject a soldier with and then have him go have sex with the enemy.
Like you do.
Some soldiers, they were having a lot of problems in the 60s, specifically with soldiers so horny they were having sex with the enemy anyway. So they're like, let's just use this to our advantage. And they injected Lady Bird Johnson as a test subject because, again, she's just like, I'm game.
Is this part of MK Ultra?
Lady Bird Johnson, famously ready for anything. She actually also ate the first chicken nugget.
Oh, did she?
I don't know if you know that. Yeah, they were testing chicken nuggets, and Lady Bird Johnson
Is that
was
also
like,
part of MK Ultra? Testing those chicken nuggets?
I'm sorry, did you say MK Ultra?
Yeah, MK Ultra. Is this part of MK Ultra?
What's MK Ultra?
What? Okay, that's for
I
a
don't know what
different
that is.
episode then, I guess. It's real government
Okay.
experiments using LSD and multiple other things to
Tight.
try to expand the human mind.
Well, people weren't used to chicken in that
I
form.
see. In LSD form.
You know what I
yeah.
mean? They were people were surprised to see chicken. They're like, it's not a breast or a thigh. And they're like, oh no, it's a nugget. And Lady Bird Johnson's like, I'll try it.
Little did she
Anyhow,
know.
they tried it. They gave her a sex virus, and then she gave it to D.B. Cooper,
Who was her famous secret lover.
famous secret lover. And that's why he had to escape, because he had the wrath of Lyndon Johnson.
Yeah, and the It Follows
who,
demon.
even if he wasn't president, I don't remember how the timelines exactly work, but even if he wasn't president, he was very powerful in the United States Senate at this point in time. And so that's the entire history of the It
Gotta get that
Follows.
money, gotta get that distance. Hide in the woods.
Well, that's
Smart.
why he needed the $200,000.
Yes.
And also why he decided, you know what? I just don't need to go back to society.
Just wait here for a bit.
Yeah.
I'm having a good time with Squam over here. Who needs that money?
He loved Squam. That's what's important to note is he loved Squam. They loved each other so much. And D.B. Cooper, of course, eaten by two bears.
Ah, I see. So he didn't
Right as, I mean, and that's what tore Squam's
heart.
loincloth and let her one breast fall out.
I see.
That so attracted Philip Wilton. And that's the history of the It Follows demon.
Who would have thought?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Fascinating. It really takes us through some famous names.
Truly.
Didn't think we were
And
going
we
to.
solved the mystery of D.B. Cooper. He was.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's two mysteries wrapped up in one.
Yeah, look at that. I'm impressed with us, honestly.
Pretty good. Roxy, is DemonBot stirring?
Wait, do you hear that?
Oh. Ugh.
Uh-oh.
Ugh. What do you got to say, DemonBot?
You have managed to review It Follows. Congratulations, your souls are safe for another week. For next week, you must review the 1982 film The Thing, directed by John Carpenter and starring Kurt Russell, Keith David, and Wilford Brimley. If you do not, your souls shall be forfeit and I shall claim your bodies as my own.
All right, we're watching The Thing from
Okay, great.
1982, and he's going to take our souls if we do not watch The Thing.
We should then, for next week, watch The Thing.
Okay, that sounds like a good idea to me. I like my soul
We
where
should
it
also
is.
probably make a bet
A bet.
about The Thing.
Okay.
Yeah. What do you say to a 4 for 4?
4 for 4. Okay, how about you explain what our 4 for 4 is then this week?
No, I don't think we need to.
Well, you don't? Okay.
I think it's pretty self-explanatory. The 4 for 4. Will the fourth billed actor of 1982's The Thing make it to the final 4 survivors of the film? We know horror movies full of characters getting slowly whittled down. The final 4, will the 4th build actor be in that final 4?
4 for 4.
Roxy, what do you think?
I am going to say no.
Okay, I will say yes. I think the 4th build actor is like a good sweet spot.
Okay.
In terms of
the cast in The Thing, there is quite a few of them too. So I'd say it could go
it's a good,
either way.
surprising choice for somebody to survive.
Yeah.
The pact is sealed. I mean, the bet is confirmed. The bet shall be whether or not the characters played by the 4 highest billed actors will also be the final 4 survivors. The loser shall be forced to play the PlayStation 2 video game sequel to the film.
Roxy, I think that's going to do it for our time here down in the scary basement. Before we go, I want you to tell everybody something that's making you happy. We don't want to leave them on this big sad horror front. We want to leave them with a little pep in their step.
Something a little upbeat. I gotcha. Well, as we're recording this, I don't know when this is going to go live. It is December and just a couple days before Christmas. So personally, I've been really enjoying packaging up Christmas gifts for people and sending them out. 'Cause I know this year in particular has been very hard for everybody, and getting a little something in the mail, knowing that somebody's thinking about you, especially when so many of us are like not together. Like I'm certainly not able to go home with my family. I'm just going to be here doing some Zoom calls.
Mm-hmm.
So it's nice to put some good energy out there for people you care about.
Yeah, unfortunately, every dollop of good energy you send out does make Krampus, the bad energy Christmas killer, that much more powerful.
Not Krampus. No.
Roxy, you have unfortunately killed a minimum of 4 people.
God damn it. Krampus always gets you. You know, you have no idea how he's going to interpret
You
that
always
shit.
forget.
Yeah, you always forget about Krampus.
You think
Krampus.
you're out of Halloween. We're done. We're done with spooky stuff. And then Krampus comes back. He's like, nope, Christmas is spooky too. And you're like, I guess.
Fine, Krampus. Fine.
Folks, that's going to do it for Roxy and I here on Scary Basement. Roxy, do you want to plug anything before we get out?
Yeah, go follow me on Twitter, Roxy Polk. It's just my name. It's really easy to remember.
I also have just a name. Follow me on Twitter at Michael McCollor and on Twitch at twitch.tv/Michael McCollor.
Hey, me too. Me also on Twitch.
Follow Roxy on Twitch also at twitch.tv/Roxy Polk. Roxy, it's time to make our escape. Are you ready?
Okay, yes.
Okay. Close your eyes.
Okay.
Take this knife.
I need to be able to see the knife. Okay.
Swing it wildly and run straight ahead.
Okay.
Go, go, go.
I feel like I'm being used as bait.